Aaron Rodgers with you alongside Tom Downey. It's time for our NFL Power Rankings pre-draft edition. We'll count you down from 32 all the way to 1.
We look forward to your hate, and we apologize in advance for having your favorite team too low.
Please, just no personal insults, all right? I have very thin skin.
I don't mind personal insults.
Gets to me. Unless you want to see me tear up on air.
All right, personal insults then.
Let's get to number 32 on the list. And Tom, it's actually kind of hard to really break down these bottom teams because I feel like they're really all close. But we got the Colts here at the bottom.
Look, and again, these are pre-draft, so the Colts might get out of the bottom spot because they have a whole bunch of draft picks. But you look at their roster right now, and Cam, it's just not very good. Like, they have a ton of needs on both sides of the ball. They need linemen, they need linebackers, they need guards. If Andrew Luck doesn't play again this year, they're going to be, again, a terrible football team. I have some serious concerns about the Colts going forward. Yeah, they got Eric Ebron, they got guys like Ryan Grant and Nico Autry, but they haven't really upgraded their team in a way that they had the cap space to do so. That's okay. They're building through the draft, and I don't mind doing that. But as they sit right now, the Colts just aren't a good football team. And I think that you get Andrew Luck fully healthy, they can be better than that, but you look at their roster as a whole, look what we've seen the past few years. And in reality, Cam, unfortunately, Luck is still a question mark. I think he's going to play. I think he's going to be fine.
That's what concerns me the most.
But that's a concern for me. And I think when we get to post-draft power stuff, the Colts will be above 32. But as of right now, because they're going to get some really good players and fill some needs, but as they sit right now, they're just not a good team.
The more and more I read about Andrew Luck, the more and more I get concerned, Tom. And a part of me just feels like we could be heading in a direction where Andrew Luck may not see the football field for a very long time.
I think he's going to play this year, but I also thought he was going to play last year. So,
right, yeah.
You know. And by the way, we'll show the preseason schedule for each and every team because those just came out, but it's the preseason. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it.
All right, so the Colts
with
check in at number 32. Let's go to number 31 on our list. Staying in the AFC here, the Miami Dolphins. And first of all, you got Ryan Tannehill coming back from injury. You lose Ndamukong Suh. Mike Pouncey moves on. Culture change?
I guess, but what's the culture building towards?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, you lose Jarvis Landry, you throw money at Albert Wilson and Damian Amendola. You needed one of those guys, not both of them. I did love getting Josh Sitton, but the reality is the Dolphins were already not a great football team. Yes, getting right back Ryan Tannehill should help, but you got worse this year. And just based on your roster moves, yeah, you got Quinn, you got Albert Wilson, you got Sitton. I actually love the Sitton side. It was actually one of my favorite ones all offseason, but you trade away Landry, which I do get, but you bring in Frank Gore, okay. Their roster is this weird hodgepodge of like, oh, here are random veterans like Frank Gore and Robert Quinn because we're going to win now, but we're not actually good enough to win right now. So it's just confusing to me. You lose Pouncey, you lose Lawrence Timmons, which I actually don't hate that much. You lose Ndamukong Suh. In reality, you lost your two best players overall, Suh and Jarvis Landry. They are going to be a worse football team next year, and that's okay. The reality is some team has to rank 31st. The Dolphins could be a nice surprise, and I do like Adam Gase, but I think they are in the midst of a rebuilding process.
All right, so the Miami Dolphins are at number 31 in our pre-draft NFL Power Rankings. Let's scoot on over to number 30 here. We got the Arizona Cardinals, new head coach there in Steve Wilks. You got Sam Bradford at quarterback. Mike Glennon is there as well. Bring in Justin Pugh at guard.
Ooh, goody. You also lost all of your receivers outside of Larry Fitzgerald. You brought in Bryce Butler, and you lost more cornerback help. And the Cardinals, another team, they got worse. Now, they were better last year than Dolphins and the Colts were. And they do get back David Johnson. That's a big deal there.
Huge.
But, look, they have a new head coach. There's going to be an adjustment phase there. When Sam Bradford gets hurt, and I do mean when because he's never healthy, you're going to have to play Mike Glennon. Oh, God. We saw that with the Bears. It's not a good scenario. So, look, the Cardinals by the way, I almost put this in earlier and hit him with the fake news, but David Johnson said, if Sam Bradford's healthy, we have the best wide receiver in the NFL, or best offense in the NFL. No,
DJ
they
said
don't.
That.
Yeah. I love you, DJ. It might be time for a random drug test because that doesn't make any sense. So they got worse on the offensive line. I think they got worse at quarterback without Carson Palmer. Their secondary is worse now. Their receiving core is worse now. I have some concerns about Arizona going forward. They were a very clear bottom three teams for me Cardinals were that 13.
And a little turnover there, too, in the coaching
And again,
staff.
I apologize in advance for being mean to teams that are fans of the Cardinals.
But sometimes they warrant it.
Colts. Yes.
Yeah. Like I said, new head coach and Wilkes
I'll
there.
never forget. Very quick tangent here because we got to keep moving. I wrote that Roddy White was overrated one of my first years here at Chat Sports, and it was the year Roddy White fell apart, and Falcons fans ripped on me, and then I'm like, I told you.
Shrug.
He fell apart.
Cardinals at number 30. Let's go to number 29. We've got the New York Giants, and it seems like most of the headlines they're stealing are mostly negative.
Yeah, look, they're going to keep OBJ, which is a big deal for them, but I think their offensive line is worse. Yes, they brought in Nate Solder, but they lost 2 really good interior linemen. They lost Jason Pierre-Paul. I think the Giants are right on the precipice of going into a full-on rebuild. Like, I don't think they're that close to truly contending. If the defense rebounds, maybe that's the case. I just find it very interesting where the Giants are at right now and Dave Gettleman. If I'm the Giants, either go get your quarterback in the draft or trade down and get more assets, because I don't think the offense in particular is in that great of shape as we sit right now. So I don't know if the Giants are the 3-3 team we saw last year. I also don't know if they're the playoff team we saw 2 years ago, or I guess a year ago.
Awkward position, too. You got Eli Manning. His contract is up in a couple of years.
Get your quarterback.
If they cut him after the 2018 season and 2019 during the spring, $17 million in cap savings. Something to ponder there. So,
I like Josh Rosen. I like Baker Mayfield.
Selecting at number 2 overall.
I will say, of these bottom 4 teams, the Giants are the one that I think can make the biggest leap forward from where they sit right now.
All right, so we got the Giants at number 29. We do want to recap here the list so far. I saw Brian chime in the comments section.
We'll do it every 4 for you.
Who was 31 and 32 respectively. So let's pull up that recap of the bottom 4 teams in our pre-draft NFL power rankings. The Indianapolis Colts are at last. We got the Dolphins second to last, Cardinals at 30, and then the Giants at number 29.
Yeah, we're good. Okay. I'll make my parody note on the next recap. Yep, I'll save it.
Let's go to number 28 on our list. We've got the New York Jets, so certainly some opportunity to grow here, Tom. They select at number 3 overall, but what do you make of this team
They
now?
weren't as bad as people thought they were going to be last year, myself included. It's an interesting roster right now. 5 wins kind of still seems right for the Jets because of the uncertainty at quarterback. We know who Josh McCown is. Maybe Teddy Bridgewater is better, but I have some doubts about that one given the way he's played, even though I am a big Teddy believer. The Jets are not a bottom 4 team for me, but depending on who they get at the draft at quarterback, maybe they go up, maybe they go down a little bit, but I don't think they're going to be a playoff football team right now. I do think, though, they're right on the precipice of being that, though. They're really not that far behind.
They're working in that
Parity
direction.
matters. These teams are not that far away from being a playoff contender.
Really like
not.
that signing with Avery Williamson there. He's a good inside linebacker.
I like that one. I'm just a little concerned about that offense, and I thought earlier in the year they overachieved, and they kind of came back down to earth after that.
All right, so the Jets are at number 28 on our list. This team was quite active in the offseason, number 27 on our rankings here. The Cleveland Browns, Tom, turnover at quarterback. You bring in Sten, you bring in Tyrod Taylor. Sam Darnold's coming to town at 1.
They got a lot better this year, and the Browns are trying to win right now. But here's the thing, despite all of their moves, how much can we actually move up a team that didn't win a football game last year?
True.
Like, I'm like, oh, I'll put the Browns at maybe even as high as 20, and then I'm like, wait, they still didn't win a game last year. So
playoff team?
The Browns are a potential playoff team.
We're going to ask the audience soon.
I will say, once we get to this point, outside of the bottom 4 or 5 teams I don't think are actual real playoff threats, I could see a scenario in which the Browns make the postseason. The draft is very dependent on that, and the Browns have a lot of picks that will help them move up once we do our post-draft ranks, but they didn't win a game last year. How high can I actually move them up? So the Browns are at 27, but I'll give them some praise. I like the way they're building. They're trying to win right now, and I like it. I can see them making a playoff push, but the reason that they're ranked lowly, I don't trust Hugh Jackson right now. I don't trust Hugh Jackson to get the most out of that football team because he hasn't done it the past 2 years.
All right, so we'll see what happens with the Cleveland Browns. They're
fingers crossed. I like the
right
Browns.
direction.
I like the Browns.
All right, they're there at number 27. You mentioned Hugh Jackson used to be a member of this team. Here at number 26, the Cincinnati Bengals, and they got Cordy Glenn.
Coaching matters. I don't trust the Bengals to make the playoffs right now under Marvin.
Yeah.
Like, Marvin should have been fired, and maybe costing the Ravens a playoff spot, saved his job when it really shouldn't have. Like, I like getting Cordy Glenn, I like getting Preston Brown, but I think the issues within the Bengals organization as a team right now are deeper than just the offensive line or just the front 7. So I love getting Glenn. I love getting Brown. They didn't really lose a whole lot of people. They still need more offensive line help. They could push for a lower-end playoff spot, but the reality is the Bengals are closer to the Browns than they are the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. That's why they rank so lowly. I hope that they make some noise because I like it when the Bengals are good. I'm from Cincinnati, but I just don't trust Marvin Lewis, and I don't trust enough of their offensive pieces right now. The offensive line is still not very good.
All right, so the Cincinnati Bengals are at number 26 here. Now, I feel like the fan base of Cincinnati is
There's a
apathetic.
strong segment that hates Marvin Lewis, and I think there's just some, again with Marvin,
Yeah.
there's that type of thing.
Let's go to number 25 here, the Washington Redskins. Now, this is a team that has a fair share of needs, especially on the interior of that defense here. But when we just talk about the collective whole of this team as we enter the draft, yeah, they have Alex Smith, but what else?
I mean, 25 through 16 even, not a major difference as far as I'm concerned. My mindset is they didn't really make sweeping changes. They swapped out, they swapped out Pernell McPhee for Trent Murphy. Okay, Murphy was hurt all last year. They added Skandrick. They got worse because they traded away Kendall Fuller. They traded away Stuart Cravens. They're probably going to lose Rashad Reeland, who still was unsigned because of a foot injury. And they traded Kirk Cousins. In reality, they swapped Kirk Cousins for Alex Smith.
Yep.
I think they got worse at quarterback. I still maintain that. So they're about kind of where they are right now. They're picking in the top 15. I think they're going to pick in the top 15 again next year. This is a team that could be a playoff threat, but in all likelihood, they're going to finish 7-9, 6-10, 8-8, somewhere in that range. And based on what we saw last year, that's what a 6-10 football team finished at, as the 25th best team in the NFL. Because parity matters.
Now, this might actually be a generous ranking, to be honest with you. So we'll see what happens with that.
I wasn't going to put them any lower than this. So
Redskins at number 25. Let's summarize the list so far. Colts, Dolphins, Cardinals, Giants, the bottom feeders. 28 through 25, the Jets, the Browns, the Bengals, and the Redskins.
Parity matters going forward. The difference between being the number 24 team and let's just say the number 14 team is actually very minimal. There is a very small and a fine line between winning those 3 close games and losing them and being a 10-6 team and being a 6-10 team or a 7-9 team. So these teams that are in these lower 20s, they are still very much in the playoff race as far as I'm concerned.
All right, you're watching NFL Daily here on Chat Sports Facebook Live, presented by Mizzen & Main. Check out their advanced performance fabric shirts at comfortable.af. You will not regret it. Products made right here in America.
And we love America.
Yes, we do. Let's continue along in our pre-draft NFL power rankings here. Number 24. Well, some changes from the head coaching staff down to the wide receiver position, for example, the Bears.
I really like the way the Bears are heading, and I think that maybe more so than a team like the Bengals or the Redskins, they are on the upswing because they have a young franchise quarterback. They added a lot of new pieces for him, and Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, Trey Burton. The defense needs some more impact players on that front seven or in the secondary, but they can get that in the draft. But the Bears are heading the right direction. I like the way they're building, but they do need Trubisky to take that step forward. They need one more guard as well, as far as I'm concerned. They're close. They're not a playoff team yet, but if they show some real promise and Trubisky does as well this year, next year I think they're going to be a very trendy playoff pick. Just next year, not this season.
I think they'll have a good draft as well, and I think they'll pick well in that top 10.
Hopefully.
All right, so we got the Bears at number 24. Let's go to number 23, sticking with the NFC. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers revamped that defensive front, bringing in Vinny Curry, Jason Pierre-Paul via the trade.
Man, I want to believe in the Bucs. I really do. I believed in them last year. I like Jameis Winston. I still have faith in him. And yeah, they upgraded on their defensive line. They brought on a whole bunch of new players. Could have, in reality, 4 guys that start for them. Well, obviously not Gerald McCoy, but 4 guys are going to play a lot of reps in Pierre-Paul, Curry, Allen, and Unrein. So I like all of those guys. You add McCoy. That's now no longer a need up front on the defensive line. But look, I don't trust Dirk Cutter, and maybe that's why the Bucs should be even lower than this. I don't trust Dirk Cutter to get the most out of his offense. He should have been fired last year. Titans were aggressive. They fired Malarkey. Bucs should have done the same thing. Just like Hugh Jackson, just like Marvin Lewis, I don't trust Dirk Cutter to do the most with this roster that I think is better than the number 23 team in the NFL.
Like that signing with Ryan Jensen there at center.
That was a great
player.
That was a great one.
All right, we got the Bucs at 23. Let's go to Mile High for number 22. We've got the Denver Broncos here. Case Keenum, he's the savior, right?
Again, I want to believe in Denver more, but they won 5 games last year. How many games is Case Keenum actually going to win you compared against the Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler trio? Let's be generous and say 3. 8-8 still going to put you around this range, and that's kind of like a best-case scenario. The defense I like a lot. I like getting Stuart Cravens. I think Denver can make a playoff run, but I don't actually think that Case Keenum is good enough to do it all by himself, because that Vikings team is better than what the Denver team is. It's a drop-off. Yep. I don't think he's going to be as bad as Rams' Case Keenum. I think it's somewhere in between. I just think he's a stopgap quarterback. So Denver, because of the question mark at quarterback as far as I'm concerned, isn't quite a top-10 team, but they are very close, though. They are close. They're on the precipice.
We'll see if the Allens or the Mayfields of the world will be there at number 5 overall.
Baker in Denver would be a lot of fun, but I don't think he's going to be there for him.
Let's go to number 21 in our power rankings now. We've got the Buffalo Bills, a playoff team a year ago. What do we think of this year?
Blare the regression candidate alarm, because Bills scream regression. The best way to look at that, look at the point differential. If you have an outlying number, you're going to regress. The Bills allowed more points than they scored last year.
They made the playoffs.
That means that 9-7 mark is deceptive. It should not be the case. They're going to regress this year. I think that they got worse at quarterback. I like getting Star Lotulelei. The offensive line is now a bit of a
huge concern.
With Incognito retired, I am pretty concerned about that one. Maybe he comes back, but who knows with Richie.
He's got until Sunday.
He's a weird guy. I don't know if I really trust that one there. Tyrod to AJ is a downgrade. They have to get better to just match the 9-7 mark that they had last year. I think that they're a prime regression candidate. Depends what happens in the draft. If they go get a high-level quarterback, maybe they'll move up. But I have some concerns about the Bills, and they got some roster holes as well. Linebacker, receiver. I think 9-7 was lucky for them last year. Now they're going to play a tougher schedule. They're going to come back down to earth.
Quick fantasy tangent. Do not reach for LaShawn McCoy in your drafts this offseason. I'm telling you right now.
I love Shady.
Oh, I'm telling you, that offensive line concerns. All right, Bills there at number 21. Let's go to number 20. We've got the Oakland Raiders. This probably has the team that could be the most polarizing, shall we say. Could move up. Down, move anywhere.
I have slandered the Raiders all offseason long, so maybe I'll start with the positive here. Look, 6-10 last year. I think they're better than that. I also don't know how much better they actually got this offseason, but 6-10, they will push for a playoff spot. Derek Carr has to be better. The offense has to be better. The front seven has to be better as well for the Raiders, and they still got some needs. I like bringing in Taylor Whitehead. I thought Nelson to Crabtree was in reality a downgrade. John Johnson, whatever, Kyle Wilbur, Gilchrist, these are all special teams guys. So the Raiders need some more help on defense mainly. In the end, Derek Carr has to be a better quarterback than what we saw last year. I think he can be. I think he will be. That'll put the Raiders back in the playoff race, but a lot of teams are around this 20s, these low teens that are all playoff threats. Can they make the big leap forward? The draft will be key on that, and I am very curious where the Raiders go. Do they go get a linebacker and don't bring back Bowman, or do they go get a cornerback?
It's interesting that Bowman's still on the open market here.
Surprising to me.
Now, everybody's pointing to John Gruden. Can he save the Raiders here? And can he make them a playoff team in 2018? We're asking you guys, and of course, Tom, we're asking you too.
I mean, I think he certainly can. I think the AFC isn't as stacked as the NFC. I hope the Raiders make the playoffs, and you can kind of go through here. A lot of it depends on two teams. How do the Raiders play against the Chiefs and the Chargers? We'll get to them later. I think they're in better shape right now, but the Raiders absolutely can beat the Chiefs and the Chargers. But let's see how John Gruden fares. He's been away from coaching for a while now. I know he's a big name. I just want to pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see it. And I've been I got bit last year by Oakland, believing in them. I'm a little bit more cautious this year.
All right, so the Raiders are at number 20. Let's go to the teams now. And at 19, the Baltimore Ravens check in, and they have a couple new additions in Michael Crabtree, John Brown. They're still in the market for more free agent wide receivers. Joe Flacco hoping for a rebound. I think he gets there. What do we make of the Ravens?
You and I discussed this before the show, and you wanted Baltimore higher, and my mindset was, where did they upgrade? They lost, in reality, I think 2 starters in Howard and Jensen on the offensive line. They brought in Crabtree, which was a great pickup, but they still had needs. They had no cap space available. RG3 is a better quarterback than Joe Flacco is.
What if you bank on Joe Flacco getting back to 2012 form?
You're screwed.
What do you mean?
It's not going to happen.
Oh.
There's no way. If you're banking on Flacco to be Super Bowl Joe Flacco, you're in for disappointment, my friend. So
I don't know.
Baltimore will push for a playoff spot just like the Oakland Raiders will and some other teams that we're going to discuss here, but I just don't trust them. I do love John Harbaugh, though. He's my boy, but I think they just have too many needs, namely on the offensive line at center and guard, and tight ends in need, inside linebacker. They're a little bit hamstrung by their cap space, but I like Baltimore. They're a top 20 team, but they're just not quite top 15, not quite playoff threat for me.
I want Ravens fans out there to remember 2 names at the wide receiver position, Willie Snead and Dez Bryant if he's cut. Okay, keep an eye on those two names.
Snead makes sense because they're really interested in adding more receivers as well.
All right, let's go to number 18 on the list. We've got the Seattle Seahawks. They certainly could use a wide receiver or two, also an offensive lineman or two.
And we were playing around with some draft simulations, and Seattle doesn't have enough draft picks. So I am actually very concerned about where Seattle sits right now. I thought about making them lower. Yes, they've got Wilson. Yes, they have some key pieces, but Cam Chancellor, Cliff Averill, these guys are all question marks. Earl Thomas' future is a question mark as well. They are very much at a turning point. Do they rebuild and blow it up, or do they try and keep winning right now? Their window is, I'm a little concerned about it.
Yeah. And
I don't trust this team right now. Their defense is not as good as it was. The roster's not as good. They lost Jimmy Graham. They lost Richardson. They lost Sherman. They lost Richardson again. So their multiple starters are now gone. Not many draft picks. I'm concerned about them. I'm very concerned about Seattle. I do trust Wilson, but if Wilson gets hurt, honestly, that might be the worst offense in the NFL. Like in all seriousness, he makes that offense run. I mean, it is Packers bad, if not worse.
You want to talk about prime regression candidate in the NFC at least?
They're going to regress.
Seattle Seahawks, no doubt about it.
Let's see what they do in the draft. They should probably try and trade down.
Yeah. They're at number 18 on the list. Let's go to number 17, the Detroit Lions. You got GM Bob Quinn there and Matt Patricia, a couple guys with Patriot ties, and the Lions bringing back Ziggy Ansah. That's important. They used the franchise tag on him, but they did lose Ebron, Nada, Whitehead.
Look, Lions are a 9-7, 8-8, 10-16. That's where you get put here if you're one of those teams. And they haven't really overhauled their roster that much. You know, you bring in Wilson to help replace Eric Ebron. You bring in Blunt. You bring in Kennard. They're a good football team, but they're not quite a great football team. That's the difference between being 17 and being 7, for example. So Detroit, as I've said for really the past 2 years, they'll push for a playoff spot. I've gotten arguments with you and Harris Rubenstein about Detroit. They'll be a playoff threat, but in a loaded NFC, going against the Vikings, Packers twice a year with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, I don't love it too much for Detroit.
I think it could be a really low-key competitive division too. So we'll see.
If the Bears are as good as I think they can be, watch out.
Yeah. All right, so the Lions are at 17. If you're just tuning in, let's summarize our rankings so far. We got the Colts, Dolphins, Cardinals, and Giants as the bottom 4. Then the Jets, Browns, Bengals, and Redskins, 28 through 25 there. Followed by the next slate of teams, 24 through 21, Bears, Buccaneers, Broncos, and Buffalo Bills.
Kind of playoff threats in my mind.
Yep, we're approaching the midway point here. We got the Raiders at 20, Ravens at 19, Seahawks at 18, and the Detroit Lions at number 17 in our pre-draft NFL Power Rankings presented by Mizzen and Main. Head on to comfortable.af to check out these advanced performance fabric shirts made right here in America. Not just shirts either. Hats, sweatshirts, pants, and so much more.
They're super comfy. They're kind of like those clothes you wear to the gym, but they look super nice as well.
Absolutely.
It's a win-win right there.
Very stylish.
Comfort and style. What more do you want?
Comfortable.af. Let's continue along now in our power rankings. Number 16, smack dab in the middle. The boys, the Dallas Cowboys, Tom.
8-8, right?
8-8.
Right in the middle. Average football team. I couldn't resist doing that. I actually moved them down one spot so that I could make that joke. That average.
Is Jeff Fisher the head coach there now or something?
It's Jason Garrett, so it might as well be. Look, they will move down if Dez Bryant gets cut. We mentioned that earlier in the show. We'll come back to it later on, that Dez has a meeting on Friday. A lot of buzz that it's going to be his last day as a Cowboy. We'll see. I hope the Cowboys don't cut him because they'd be worse without him. Because Allen Hurns, Deontay Thompson, Cole Beasley, Terrence Williams, those are not guys that you want as your top-tier receivers. They didn't spend a lot of money in free agency. They tried to get Sammy Watkins. Didn't work out. This team should be better than what they were last year because Tyron Smith hopefully is going to be healthy. Zeke Elliott won't be suspended every other week and won't miss 6 games in the end. So that stability is going to be key for the Cowboys. It will help them as well. I like where Dallas sits, and I think the reality is once we get to these teams, these next couple batches, teams that have every expectation of being in the playoffs, if not more so, and if they don't, heads might roll.
Yep. And coaches may get fired.
Jason Garrett is on the hot seat. If he does not make the playoffs, I don't think he's going to be back next year.
Cowboys, check in at number 16, right in the middle of our power rankings. Let's go to number 15 here. We've got the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, the era has begun.
I am excited about Mahomes because I am a Patrick Mahomes fantasy owner. But I'm cautious. I'm not quite ready to buy into him yet. I want to see how he fares. Getting Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, those are some really good offensive players for a guy that loves to air it out deep. That's going to be a fun fit. They overpaid for Hitchens. That's okay. I didn't like trading Marcus Peters. I don't like that move. The corner's a big need now for Kansas City. We'll see what happens to the Chiefs. I think that they're going to be a borderline playoff team. But in the end, if Mahomes takes a big step forward and can be a more dynamic option than Alex Smith, even though they're going to be lumps and ups and downs, they're going to be kind of where they were last year. If he doesn't, might end up with a high draft pick. And in reality, that's okay playing in reality, a quarterback getting his first actual reps in meaningful games. So expect maybe a slow start for Kansas City, but we know Andy Reid's a great coach. He might get him going late in the year.
Chiefs better look out because I think the other 3 teams around them are going to get better.
Agreed.
And so, something to kind of keep in mind there. So speaking of which, let's get to those Chargers now. They're at number 14 in our rankings, a team that I like a lot, Tom. But it's so easy to fall in love with this squad, especially in the offseason. I remember reading an article.
You are all aboard the Chargers right now,
absolutely.
man. You are all aboard.
Let me say this.
You are the conductor of the LAC hype train.
A writer for Sports Illustrated before the 2017 season
Sports Illustrated
had the Chargers winning the Super Bowl. So people buy into this team. They're fun.
They're fun, but I also know that Philip Rivers is going to have back-breaking turnovers. I think in reality they're in good shape. Their roster's pretty solid. They got to feature Hunter Henry more. I'm not ready to buy them. I'll buy them as a playoff team this year, Cam. But Super Bowl, I'm not there yet. I just don't know if the offense is consistent enough, if the offensive line is good enough. Getting Pouncey is a big deal. They got to stay healthy. I think that they are going to make the playoffs. I'm going to pick them maybe to even win the AFC West, but Super Bowl, I'm not there yet.
Okay,
I'm not there with LA as a top 10 team.
I agree with that one.
They are a good team, though.
Yep, they are. Good edge rushers, good secondary at that. We got the Chargers at 14. Let's go to 13. The Houston Texans, it's all about the health of Deshaun Watson. How does he come back?
We're really, in general, we are very much all aboard the Deshaun Watson train. And I get it. They were so much better when he was healthy. They were a dynamic offense, and he threw for a bunch of yards, a bunch of deep touchdown passes. He also threw 8 interceptions in 6 starts.
People forget that.
He turned the ball over a lot, and he was very much the same guy we saw at Clemson. And there was a great number. I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but there's a difference between accuracy and placing the ball well. And Watson completes a good amount of his passes, but at Clemson and last year for Houston, his placement wasn't that great. He would have to get bailed out by Hopkins times. Now, I like Deshaun Watson. He was better than I thought he was going to be. But let's just pump the brakes a little bit. If Deshaun Watson isn't the same guy we saw last year, or if he takes a little bit to get going, or if teams figure him out a little bit, Texans will regress. They're going to be a playoff threat. That's why they're 13th, even though they only won 4 games last year. Watson is a big factor on that team. Getting Watt healthy is a big deal. I love getting Tyrann Mathieu. There's a lot to like about Houston, but there are areas to go, hey, this could be a problem. And if Deshaun Watson stayed healthy, he would have won me my fantasy league. I have no doubts about that. But I just want to see a healthy season from Watson and cut down the turnovers, because there were a pretty good amount of them last year. Now, I thought he was the best of the rookie QBs we saw last year, obviously. I think Trubisky was the only one in the discussion there. But let's pump the brakes just a little bit on Watson going forward. But I do think he looks like the franchise guy for Houston, and that's good because he's fun to watch.
Houston Texans are at number 13 in our power rankings. Let's go to number 12 now. We've got the Carolina Panthers, a playoff team a year ago. Cam Newton and company entering 2018.
12 just seems exactly right.
It does.
For them. That just seems exactly where Carolina should be, and they need more offensive guys. I love getting Dontario Poe. The offensive line's not going to be quite the same, but they're going to be a team that probably wins 10 games, and maybe that's not enough to get to the playoffs.
And by the way, win ugly 10 games.
Yeah, it's not always going to be pretty. I will say this. I am questioning Norv Turner as the OC.
How can you not?
The game may have passed him by. Last time we saw him in Minnesota, it wasn't very good. So we'll see how he fits with Cam Newton, who does carry that offense. Got to find a way to get McCaffrey a little bit more involved as well in terms of carries. Great slot receiver, but needs more work on the ground.
All right, so
we'll
we
see.
Got the Carolina Panthers there
Playoff
at 12.
team.
Let's go to number 11 here. The Tennessee Titans out of the AFC South. New head coach and Mike Vrabel, Deion Lewis, Malcolm Butler now in town. Benny Logan, some depth there on the defensive line. I like this team, Tom.
I got burned last year by a similar team. The Titans are a regression candidate because their point differential was bad. They should not have been 9-7. They have to be much better as a football team to even get to be 9-7 again. But I do think that they will do that because the roster the Titans have is really good. Corey Davis is now going to be healthy, you would think. Deion Lewis is a great fit. I like keeping Josh Klein. Getting Malcolm Butler is a nice pickup. Benny Logan was a steal at $4 million as a one-technique kind of run-stuffer guy there. I like where Tennessee is at, and most importantly, Mike Mularkey's gone.
I was going to mention
that. I'm not ready to buy into Mike Vrabel fully yet, but I do like his OC choice. I like bringing in the Rams guy there. I think that's going to be a big boost.
LaFleur there, yep.
They won in spite of Mike Mularkey last year. A new offense that should fit Marcus Mariota so much better. They're going to thrive. The Titans will be better than they were last year. Maybe they only win like 10 games because they won more games than they should have last year, but they're going to be a threat. This is a good football team. I like them to very much threaten the Jaguars to win the AFC South next year. This is a good football team. I buy into Tennessee. I thought about having them inside the top 10 as well. Didn't quite do that, though. Wasn't quite ready to fully buy in to Tennessee.
Let's go to that top 10. Check in with number 10 on our list. We got the San Francisco 49ers. Sherman comes on over. They get Weston Richburg, the interior offensive lineman that they so coveted. Jerick McKinnon, fat contract, but will be used a lot in that Shanahan system.
We got to pump the brakes just a little bit, Cam. I get it. It's the Niners. They looked so different with Jimmy G at the helm. They brought in McKinnon and Richburg and Sherman. Jimmy G looks like a totally different quarterback for the Niners compared to what they've had in recent years. I get the love affair with San Francisco. There are still some holes on this roster, and I still want to see more from Jimmy G. He had a lot of passes that probably should have been picked off. You go back and look at the quarterbacks from last year. Jimmy G might have been, if not the most, one of the most guys who had the most passes that should have been picked off last season. So I believe in Jimmy G. I've been a big fan of him when he was coming out of Eastern Illinois. I bought into the hype around him. I thought he was going to be a really good quarterback. I love him in San Francisco. The Niners will compete for a playoff spot, but I think they might be 1 year away and some other upgrades from actually being a Super Bowl threat. I love the coaching. I love the direction of the franchise. They're a top 10 team for me. Let's pump the brakes just a little bit. They're just outside the actual Super Bowl threats in my eyes.
All right. Joe Montana said the same thing, Tom. Not sure yet about being the savior.
I believe in him, but let's just see a little bit more than a handful of games out of Jimmy G.
All right, so we've got the 49ers inside the top 10. Now, reports suggest the 49ers could be playing this team in Week 1. That's the rumor out there. We got the Green Bay Packers at number 9.
Welcome to your Super Bowl threats. And the Packers, yes, they went 7-9. How many games would they have won if Aaron Rodgers was healthy all year long? At least 10, right?
Sure.
Now you bring in Jimmy Graham. Now you bring in Mo Wilkerson. Yes, you lost Jordan Nelson. They'll probably spend like a round 2 pick on a receiver. They got better. They got Aaron Rodgers back. This is going to be the old Packers we're used to. Now, the old Packers aren't exactly the Super Bowl winning team. They make the playoffs. They win the NFC North, but they're not quite that next level. That's why they're not in the top 8 or top 7 or top 5. But I don't bet against Aaron Rodgers in the regular season. I think the Packers are going to be a playoff team again next year. And look, we mentioned this earlier. There's their preseason schedule. We'll kind of bring those up throughout the show because, well, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. We'll just throw it out there for you guys.
Sure. All right, we got the Green Bay Packers there at number 9. Let's summarize the list so far. Pre-draft NFL Power Rankings. Colts, Dolphins, Cardinals, Giants bringing up the rear. 28 through 25, we got the Jets, the Browns, the Bengals, and the Redskins. 24 through 21, Bears, Bucks, Broncos, and Bills. 20 by 17, we got the Raiders, Ravens, Seahawks, and Lions.
Playoff threats.
Yes. In the middle of the pack here, we got the Cowboys, then the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Texans. 12 through 9, Panthers, Titans, 49ers, and the Green Bay Packers as we continue along. NFL Daily presented by Mizzen & Main. Check out these advanced performance fabric shirts that you will not regret buying. I'm telling you, check them out. Comfortable.af is the website. Let's continue along in our rankings here. So we've got number 8 up, the Atlanta Falcons. I like this team, not a lot of needs, and they're going to have a good draft just because they can kind of explore.
They should be higher in all reality, but they're not because I don't trust Steve Sarkisian. I think the Falcons have the most complete roster in the NFL, and yet they're only 8 because they only won 10 games last year, and they haven't really done a whole lot to really upgrade their roster. I think that they have a new guard, but they need a new defensive tackle and a new weapon at wide receiver. They're a very good football team, but they should be great. I think they should have won one of the last Super Bowls. Now, they should have won the one because they shouldn't have blown that lead, but they should have been back again this year. This roster's loaded. This is a great Falcons team. I think Steve Sarkisian holds them back as coordinator. I don't think they're maximizing their offensive talents, plain and simple.
All right, we got the Falcons there at number 8 on our list. Let's go back to the AFC. Number 7, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, Tom, I mean, I'm not high on this team for more off-the-field reasons, but on the field, I mean, a well-balanced roster.
If Big Ben is healthy, 7's almost like their floor. And now, if Big Ben goes down, all of a sudden you're playing Landry Jones or Joshua Dobbs, and you're like a Browns team. Like, you're bad because Landry Jones is not very good. Joshua Dobbs is not ready. So the Steelers got a great signing in Burnett, one of my favorite ones this offseason. They still need linebacker help. Lev Bell's future is kind of a question mark, I think, in general going forward beyond this year. But this is a good Pittsburgh Steelers team. There's a reason they're clearly one of the top 3 teams in the AFC. There's an echelon. It is the top 3 AFC teams, and almost then, hey, where's everyone else kind of
drop
slot
off?
in?
It's watered down.
There's a drop off there. That's going to help them win more games, even though they might not be truly a team that should only lose 3 games. Maybe they should lose more if they play in the NFC, but this is a great Steelers team. They're going to be back in the playoffs as long as Big Ben is healthy. They're an obvious pick for a top 10. You can make an argument that they should be top 5, frankly.
Well, the Steelers struggled mightily trying to find a way to defeat this team here at number 6. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Love the defense, top down, secondary to defensive line. They address the guard position with Andrew Norwell. Can Blake Bortles get it done?
No.
Okay.
That's why they're not top 5.
Sad.
But they're ahead of Pittsburgh because they beat Pittsburgh. So
gotta have them.
I gotta put them ahead of them. And frankly, I think they kind of got better, especially on the offensive line. I like bringing in new tight ends. The receiving core, I don't trust, but Fournette's going to run for a bunch of yards, so it kind of help make up for it. The defense is absolutely loaded, as we know. I trust Jacksonville to be a similar team to what we saw last year, win a bunch of games, maybe not sexily, but the defense is going to be stout. The ground game is going to be good. Bortles just has to manage the game and not mess up too much. And I think he showed that, yeah, he can do that a little bit. But again, I don't fully trust Jacksonville to take the leap and be a true Super Bowl threat, in my eyes at least.
All right, we got the Jags checking in at number 6 now. Let's go to number 5 on our list. We have the New Orleans Saints. Love this team a lot, Tom. And as we go through these NFC teams here, all very tightly packed in terms of talent.
Oh, yeah, and there's an argument the Saints should be number 2, number 3
Sure.
even. Like, it's a good Saints team. The defense has been upgraded after overachieving last year. I like where they're at. They still have Drew Brees. They haven't really lost anyone of note. I still would like some more defensive help, maybe another receiver, even though they did get Cam Meredith today. The Saints are a Super Bowl threat. They're in their Super Bowl window. If you want to say, hey, they should be 3, they should be 4, I'm not going to put up a big argument against you, but I think the Saints are a perfect spot at the 5th overall spot. Hope Drew Brees can win an MVP this year. That'd be great. The offense is going to be loaded. The defense looks better than what it was last year, at least on paper. We'll see that ends up being the case in terms of the way that they play. I like the Saints a lot. They are very much a Super Bowl threat in my eyes. And I think all these top 5 teams are.
I like that back end a lot, too, with the addition of Patrick Robinson, Marshawn Lattimore there as well.
Question for me is, how does Marcus Williams kind of handle the mental side of things after what happened against the Vikings? He's a talented player, was great for the Saints, but that one play can break a player.
It can define your career.
It can.
All right.
Hopefully it doesn't, because I like him a lot.
We got the Saints at number 5. Number 4, the final AFC team, the New England Patriots. So, you know, uncharacteristically a little active this offseason. They traded away Brandon Cooks. Cordero Patterson comes to town. They signed Jeremy Hill, Jason McCourty, big addition, and that secondary.
I like getting Shelton. I like getting McCourty, Claiborne, whatever. Patterson will be fun on returns, but they lost 2 key offensive linemen, Nate Solder and Cam Fleming. They lost Deion Lewis. They lost 2 receivers in Danny Amendola and Brandon Cooks. Patriots got worse, man. And now, they're still a great football team. They're the class of the AFC, but I saw some power rankings at the Patriots at the number 1 spot. I can't do that.
No.
I just have too many doubts about this team. We know pass rush is still an issue. At a certain point, they're not going to be the dynasty. I still trust them. I trust Belichick. I trust Brady. I like a lot of their key players. They have multiple picks in the draft. Really, that'll help them out as well. But they're the class of the AFC, but not a top 3 team for me. There are other teams that have better offseasons, have moved them up above the Patriots. But look, even though they're 4, I think they're going to make it back to the Super Bowl. So, no, the dynasty is not crumbling yet.
I don't know, Tom. I'm telling you, Belichick and Gronk getting into it.
Maybe there are some cracks. Maybe the foundation is getting a little old.
It's a little rickety.
Namely at quarterback, but they're going to be fine.
All right, we got the Patriots at 4 on our list. Let's go to the top 3. Number 3, the LA Rams. Are you buying the hype?
I am willing to buy into it. There are a lot of personalities in that locker room now, with Marcus Peters and Sue and Talib, and maybe you can throw in Todd Gurley, although I don't know if he's really necessarily a big type of personality. But look, there's a reason those teams, all those players were dealt or cut. So that is something to consider. But on paper, my goodness, everyone wants to be the Rams in Madden. You got Sue, you got Peters, you got Talib. You throw in Brandon Cooks as an offensive weapon now for Jared Goff. You got Gurley coming back. The offensive line should be fine again. I love Sean McVay. Love that hire at the time. Was very high on him. I think the Rams are going to be a real Super Bowl threat. Now, being good on paper doesn't always mean you're the best team. We've seen dream teams in the past. Remember that Philadelphia Eagles team that fell apart?
Nandi Asmawa.
Yes. Oh, man, a name that I've not heard in quite some time. Man, I thought he was going to be so good with Philadelphia. Totally fell apart. Good old Nandi. Look, there are some reasons to be concerned, but they're 3 for a reason. This is a really good football team. I'm ready to buy into them. I don't think they win the NFC. I think that they win the NFC West. I think they make it deep in the playoffs, but I don't think they're the Super Bowl favorites right now out of the NFC because it is so stacked. I mean, look, 4 of the top 5 are NFC teams. That's impressive.
Common theme here with the top 4 NFC teams that we're going to go through. Very good defensive line, very good secondary. That's why they're going to make playoff pushes here. Let's go to number 2 on our list. The Minnesota Vikings. They won the white whale, Kirk Cousins, and the 84 guaranteed money.
I kind of feel like the Vikings, because the Rams were so active and the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year, kind of overlooked almost. Yeah, they need an offensive lineman, but they got the best quarterback by far available, Kirk Cousins. That's an upgrade over the Case Keenum, Bradford, Bridgewater trio that they had last year. They also got Sheldon Richardson because why not? Sure. Why not get a sled defensive lineman for a year and then see what happens after that? This is a good football team. And I think that Minnesota in particular, the playoffs did not end the way that they wanted to. The expectation is Super Bowl now. If they don't win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins at the helm, what went wrong? Were there injuries? Is Mike Zimmer not the best coach? I like Zimmer a lot. Is Cousins overrated? That's going to be the discussion there because this team with that defense, with the offense, they get back Dalvin Cook as well from a team that didn't have it last year. Their receivers are great, underrated, but great. This is a very dangerous team, and they're going to be a very popular pick to win the Super Bowl as well, especially if you don't want to pick the team that won last year.
Exactly.
This Minnesota team is loaded. I love them.
Very difficult. Yep, like the Vikings a lot as well. They're at number 2 in our rankings, which leaves us with the champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, at number 1. They didn't get worse.
We're going to put some respect on the Eagles. All right? Look, They won the Super Bowl with their backup quarterback. Yes, they lost Robinson and Burton and Allen, but they stole Haloti Ngata. They got Michael Bennett, although he's got some off-field issues arrest-wise. They got Nigel Bradham back. They signed Mike Wallace, traded for Darryl Worley. They got draft picks to use as well. Like, this team, they didn't really get worse. And they get their quarterback, you would think, back at some point in the regular season. So, of course the Eagles are number 1. I think it's disrespectful to not have them at the first overall spot. You win the Super Bowl, as long as you don't get substantially worse, you should be number 1. And I think that's fair. I think that'll be the case after we do our post-draft ranks as well. The Eagles are built to last. They've got a lot of their guys locked up. It's a team that's not going to go away anytime soon. They're going to continuously be a threat in the NFL.
Is whatever they do in the draft gravy at this point?
Yeah, I mean, look at their needs. You could get a tackle, a tight end, a linebacker, but they're not desperately needing anything. Yeah. Like, they're going to be able to take the best guy on their board, truly, and you don't often see that. And that's a big deal for Philadelphia, to build out depth for when guys inevitably do leave.
All right, let's do the full-on summary of our pre-draft NFL power rankings, 32 through 29. Colts, Dolphins, Cardinals, Giants. Next slate of 4, we got the Jets, the Browns, the Bengals, and the Redskins, followed by the Bears, Buccaneers, Broncos, and Bills at number 21. The Raiders, Ravens, Seahawks, and the Lions, 20 through 17. There are the Cowboys at number 16, followed by the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Texans. 12 through 9, we got the Panthers, Titans, 49ers, and Green Bay Packers. Then we've got the Atlanta Falcons, Pittsburgh Steelers, Jacksonville Jaguars, and New Orleans Saints, 8 through 5. And your top 4 teams, New England Patriots, LA Rams, Minnesota Vikings, the Philadelphia Eagles.
For me, there is a very clear top 5 in this pecking order. Eagles, by the way, deserve to be number 1. I think any rankings that don't have them at the first spot, is disrespectful.
I am always of the camp that you got to put the defending champs at number 1.
Unless you really, really, really get worse. Like
Yes.
you lose everybody.
Like it's obvious.
Eagles did not do that. There's an argument they actually got better this year.